Welcome into Other People's Shoes. I'm your host, Neil, and today I'm so excited because we're rolling out a bonus episode. Ta-da! That's right, we have a special bonus episode just for you. I ran into a gentleman kind of in a roundabout sort of way, and you're going to hear about that in the episode of how we connected. His name is Ben. Ben is currently a youth pastor of family and children ministry at the church that he attends currently. We have a crazy circumstances of events of how we met, and we'll talk about that also in the episode. But the reason why I chose this as a bonus episode is because Ben right now is currently in the midst of the battle. That battle, he's working with youth and children right now. And he is seeing quite the opposite of what I've seen. And that is this idea of kids leaving the church. So Ben has a great, compelling reason why kids stay. I hope you'll stay tuned to hear his episode. Because you know I'm ready. Hope you are too. Here we go.
Hey, come take a walk with me. Not like you used to do. Do something different and put yourself in other people's shoes. Open up your mind and open up your eyes and change your direction, change your perspective.
Welcome into Other People's Shoes. I am your host, Neil, and I'm joined on the phone. We're doing a phone interview today, so stay tuned for that. It's going to be maybe a little choppy at parts. We're hoping not. Cellular phones working correctly. AT&T come through for us big time. Welcome in my guest, Ben. Ben, how are you?
Hey, I'm doing well, Neil. I'm glad to be on the show here.
Awesome, man. So Ben, little background. We don't know each other at all, and people always laugh when I start out that way, my wife especially. So there's a mention. So she feels like every time she gets mentioned, she should get money. So I don't know if you'd like to be her agent, but she is requesting some kind of monetary value. I'm like, babe, you're married to me. That should be your prize alone. Any event. Ben, what size shoe do you wear?
I'm a size 13.
Are you a 13? Holy
13
smokes.
and a half, depending on the brand, but
okay,
mostly
and
13.
that was going to be my next question is what brand is Ben's choice?
I like Nike and Adidas.
Whoa.
I like basketball shoes. Those are my favorite.
Do you have a favorite pair of basketball shoes that you're like, man, those maybe you don't own them, but I call them unicorn shoes, like they're mythical in a sense because I'm like they're never going to be in my price range, but if I ever got that point, then I would have these unicorn shoes. I don't know if you have such a thing.
No.
Okay.
No, I don't have. I do not have a favorite type of if they're Nike or Adidas, I found that they are solid. So
gotcha. All right.
Good with
Fair
that.
enough. All right. I'm a big Jordan guy myself, so I'm currently wearing my Jordans.
Yeah, those
right
are good.
Now, so.
Those are good.
Yeah. So, but we've never met. We actually know each other through someone who knows someone who knows someone. Isn't that right?
Pretty close.
Okay.
Yeah. Gary.
Yes.
Gary, your producer.
Yeah, I don't
No.
like to.
Is that what it's called?
I don't like to give him that title because I feel like I'm like the producer. But Gary might disagree. But he is his official title. I like to call him the audio editor.
I was laughing when I heard. I think it was 2 episodes ago when you're interviewing the couple, and the lady literally said, "Hey Gary, you can cut this part out." Nice, Gary left it in. Good for that guy.
I have a really bad habit too. I don't go back and listen to published episodes.
Yeah.
Is that weird?
You were there live.
I was. And as much as I love like a repeat movie, I'm like, Then I get critical. And I don't ever want to get critical. So, So, Ben, we've never met. We've traded a few Facebook messages, and now we actually get to talk face-to-face over the phone, so to speak. But, man,
that's right.
I'm excited about what you're doing, and you're doing some crazy stuff. But you really kind of got how we met is through a Facebook post that you made and then Gary commented on. So really talk about that if you can. Let's just jump right into that
Yeah.
because that's kind of how we cross paths. So let's talk about that.
Yeah. Yeah. So I'm a youth pastor and a kids pastor at a church in Monmouth, Oregon, and anybody walking through the doors 0 to 18 years old, is kind of where I oversee. And my biggest question was, hey, what's your reason for, what's something that would draw you into coming into church, attending church? And I kind of wanted to pick the brains of, well, I posted it on Facebook, so it'd be more adult age answering, but I just wanted to kind of gauge what was going on in their minds. And I left the question open to Christians and non-Christians and Christians who attend church and Christians who do not attend church, anybody. What can the church offer that you would feel like is valuable enough to attend? And I got some great responses.
What was the best response you read?
I think the one that stuck out to me the most was a lady that I went to high school with. She said, I would attend church if they didn't make me feel like my brother who committed suicide was going to hell. That's the one that I remember the most.
Wow. That's powerful, right?
When I read that, I just had like goosebumps from, bad goosebumps, like
right.
Just kind of shocked, but definitely could see her, where she was coming from.
Right.
And I got some other really good answers. Like, I have a really rambunctious son. And so I just am worried about my son being judged, or, I would like to know the kids leaders who are going to watch my child before I just drop them off with strangers, So I got some really good answers.
Yeah, I mean, all of those sound valid. I mean,
yeah.
I got a 12-year-old. My hand's up on that one. I want to know the leader before I drop my 12-year-old daughter with some random, dude, whatever, or lady even, doesn't matter.
Absolutely.
All those to me sound super valid. So you have this post, right? Just to recap, you kind of throw it out to the stratosphere of the world, so to speak, because, I mean, that's what happens when we throw stuff on Facebook. We never know what's going to happen. It's kind of like a boomerang. Is it going to come back? We're not sure. And then Gary, my editor, who's also been on the show, was in a show called You Lost Me Part 2. He's on it. You know him directly, indirectly, however, and he comments. And what was Gary's comment?
Yeah, his comment was, I don't actually remember word for word what his comment was.
Yeah, that's okay.
I think the I'm gonna butcher it, but what I walked away from reading Gary's comment is that this guy has really thought it out. He's taken the time to think through faith, and he's come to his conclusion. And there's people who are like Gary in that sense that they think through faith and they say, I just can't subscribe to that. And so I kind of walked away thinking, that's okay. I won't be able, there's people that the church just won't be able to bring any value to. And that's okay. I want to focus on the people that feel like they can find value from a church, a family, a church family.
You mentioned being a youth guy and really kind of even a family ministry guy. Those are both churchy words. Essentially, you're overseeing, children that are coming to the church, but you're also overseeing youth, just to kind of put it in a perspective for someone maybe that isn't affiliated with a church.
Yep.
So Are you seeing in your realm and even your experience through the years, are you seeing where youth have left? And that's again the whole premise of this series of You Lost Me, where kids are leaving in droves. Kids now, they're really young adults, are leaving in droves. Are you seeing that on your end of things as well, or am I just crazy and maybe wasn't that good of a youth leader, and maybe that's why my kids left? Which one would you think it's truer, I guess?
Yeah. Yeah. Um, I am seeing. So when I began attending youth group, I was about 14 years old,
And what year was that?
and
What year was that? Help us out.
yeah, I graduated in from Eagle Point High School actually
There you go.
in
Go Eagles.
yeah in 2007.
Okay.
So gosh, 2003, 2002. I began attending a church actually in White City, and so that youth group, our strongest numbers were probably like we got up to like around 20 to 25. And I think looking at all of those people, I'd say there's maybe 4 or 5 of us that still attend church. So
So throw that
in
out
that
there.
sense,
Throw that out there again. So there's 20 of you, roughly, right?
yeah, at our strongest, there was
At your
20 of
strongest,
us.
you're 20, and you're saying 4 currently are going or maybe involved, whatever, in some capacity, or are still serving or worshiping or continuing to participate. 4 of those 20.
Yeah, it would be 4 or 5 of us, and
That's staggering.
some of us in that youth group is some of us are have passed away. Some of us have had run-ins in the law, have had prison time. A few of them are, divorced and, just paying a lot of child support. And not to say that the ones who do go to church, have a great, incredible life, but
They're on Fortune 500 lists. They're working for
no,
Microsoft. They're Nike representatives. None of that.
absolutely not, none of
Okay.
that. But
Okay.
but but we, I guess when you have people rooting for you and encouraging you, and you stay in that kind of influence, it does help, So I attribute my youth leaders, and then just staying in that circle of faith influence where I'm being just encouraged to do well in life. I think that had a huge part to play on those of us who are still attending church, and we seem to be doing okay for ourselves, by human standards.
I think that's great. What is the number one challenge that you run into with young people nowadays?
I think probably the I think it's just like there's like a battle for attention, and it was bad when I was in high school, but it's just gotten worse. And
What do you mean
people,
by battle for attention? And maybe you're going to go into that, but yeah, if you can, maybe clarify that for me. What do you mean by
yeah,
battle for attention?
yeah, I think that when I look at the teenagers and in the youth group at the church that I work for, it's hard for them to study to study the Bible, or to have a consistent prayer life, because there's so many other things pulling for their attention. And so I think that's probably the toughest thing. I could give you I could give you other things that would be hard and tough and challenging for youth. But I think if we strip it down and see like what is the, you know, let's not put a Band-Aid over the owie. Let's see what's the centralized wound here, you know, and I think it would just be that kids aren't getting into the scriptures. They aren't reading it for themselves, or having a prayer life, a consistent prayer life. So I think that's the main struggle with me to see.
How do parents play a role in your mind in shaping spiritual development?
Oh man. Yeah, there's a huge difference between the child, the teenager, who there's a huge difference in the child or the teenager who their parents are involved in helping them develop their faith, and then the parent that just kind of drops them off at youth group. We're not babysitters. We're never supposed to be just here to babysit your kids or your teens, and it's supposed to be a partnership. Youth pastors, kids pastors are supposed to be partnering with the parents to help develop a healthy spiritual walk with the Lord for these kids. And so yeah, it makes a huge difference for a parent that's with you, that's on your side, and that you can partner with instead of they just drop off their kids and say, okay, I'll be back in 2 hours, and that's just the extent of it.
How many kids have you seen leave your youth ministry and not come back?
The youth
Rough
group,
guess. I know you
yeah,
probably don't have an exact number, but I mean, rough
yeah.
guess.
0. I mean, I'm not saying that to brag. I've only had two, or excuse me, I've had 3 graduating classes come through, and I haven't seen any of my youth students who have graduated leave their faith. Now, I'm just thinking of one kid who was a foreign exchange student, and he went back to South Korea. So I don't have contact with him. And there's a couple that they just may be really good about not sharing that part of their lives. But a definite answer is I can't. No one that's graduated through the youth group that I can look at and say, yeah, they've stepped away from their faith.
What are you doing that others aren't? Now you have me curious. Right? Because I don't know if you've read the book, but it's called "You Lost Me." I mean, that's really what kind of got my mind going on this direction. And being a youth guy myself, I mean, I've seen an epidemic of kids leave, and
Yeah.
social media is really good about letting us keep tabs on folks, or at least get a glimpse of maybe where they are, but what are you doing that maybe I didn't do? Again, I'm not saying I was wrong and you're right, or vice versa, or whatever. But I mean, what do you think the key is that has kept kids there for you?
Yeah, no, I think my answer is probably going to be a little surprising because I think that probably healthy youth groups, a sign of a healthy youth group is having students who walk away from the faith. And let me explain what I mean by that is, right now, we're just now seeing the wheels turn as far as an invite culture. So when I first came in as a youth pastor, it's taken me 3 years to get to the point where students have caught the vision. And now that the culture is starting to change, where they're inviting their friends to youth group and to hear about God and experience Jesus for themselves. So the high majority of my kids, my teenagers, have grown up in the church. And so I do have a couple who have not grown up in the church, and they're still, actually one just became my youth leader. But yeah, so I don't know. I hope you're not looking at me like, man, this guy's got it figured out. I think
I
in a
kind
few
of
years,
am, Ben. I mean, being honest, again, I feel like, what did I do that why didn't I follow the steps that you did? Or, you know what I mean? I mean, I don't know. I mean,
think
I'm
in a
not
few
saying you're the
years,
Michael Jordan of youth ministry, but man,
oh no.
maybe. I mean, I don't know.
I think if you ask me in a few years, I've got a couple of sophomores in my group that I'm like looking at like, oh Lord, please. I think if you ask me in a few years,
Yeah.
I'm sure I'm bound to have some students that go through and walk away from the faith. But yeah, right now it's just the high majority of my students have just grown up in the church, and that helps, But I'll tell you one thing that I do is I make sure that that they get plugged in serving.
Talk about how that works for you guys.
Yeah, so even my student who just graduated, and some people are kind of nervous about putting them on as a youth leader because they go from being a peer to a youth leader. Man, I'm gonna plug them in as quickly as I can, and she's only a youth leader because she's shown that she can lead. But we also have a lot of other volunteer opportunities, like with the kids ministry, because I'm the kids pastor there. I see what needs we have and what opportunities to volunteer there. So I get them plugged in. I get them feel like, and I look at what they're good at. So we have a girl that is just phenomenally artistic, and she likes to draw. In my opinion, it's kind of strange, those like Japanese cartoons, style cartoons.
Yeah.
But she loves it, and I look at it and I go, I mean, she's obviously really good at this. And so I have her draw my graphics. I have a chalkboard and big sign as the kids walk in, they can see what our goals for raising money for missions is, and what our upcoming events are. And I'm having her like draw the graphics on that chalkboard, and so it's just about getting them involved in volunteering. Even my 12-year-olds who age out of kids ministry and now move into youth ministry, they are now getting filtered into where they are volunteering with the 0 to 5-year-olds. And so just creating like a culture of getting plugged in, and it kind of helps solidify your worth. You feel like so after you're done with high school, it's not, hey, what church pew can I fill in? What church can I find a seat to fill? But it's like, go off to college and, hey, what church can I get involved in and volunteer with and spend time with and intern with? And, that's what I tell my students. And that's kind of the culture that we built. So I think that helps. In fact, I know it helps because I've read the book and You've Lost Me. And I know that they talked a little bit about that.
They did. A lot, actually. We're using Gary as an example here. Gary's a church kid by all definitions, right? Yeah. Grew up in the church. Parents super active in the church. I mean, his dad, Alan, I think, fixed every square inch of the church that we grew up in, Medford Neighborhood Church. Shout out to them. Great ministry if you're looking for a church in the Valley. They teach Jesus, all that fun stuff. Anyway, so Gary still, even though he had active parents, encouraged him to go, never used church as a punishment, quite the opposite. If he didn't get his stuff done, he didn't get to go to church, which there's arguments for and against that. We won't go down that road. But how are you getting parents to buy into the vision and to the passion and to the youth stuff, and still not seeing kids walk.
Yeah. Well, first of all, some of the greatest spiritual mentors that I've ever had. I mean, I've had the privilege of having mentors that preach to congregations of 500 plus, and even some of them that they'll have maybe 4 or 5 kids, and they'll have a child that has walked away from the faith. Like, I think at the end of the day, like, you can do your best, and of course Scripture talks about raising your kids up in the ways of the Lord, and teaching them the Scriptures, but no one's forced here. And so I think if we kind of cut the guilt and say, you know, there's just part of the risk of having kids, and that you're training them in the faith, is that they can make their own decisions, and nobody, you can't force your faith on anybody, thank God, right? Because if we lived in that kind of world, um, there's countries that do that, and it's not healthy. Um, so I think, first of all, just letting parents know that there's grace for the parents who uh, who feel like it's on them that their child's walked away from the faith. Um, and then I think, to answer your question more directly that you're asking here, how do I equip parents to team up with a youth pastor? Is that essentially what you're saying? What you're
Yeah,
asking?
essentially, yeah. Because again, you mentioned that most of your kids are church kids. That implies to me you got church parents, you got parents that are active, maybe in ministry in some form or fashion, whether they're volunteering or they're actively attending. They're not just, oh, little Susie, little Johnny, dropping you off for 2 hours, have fun at youth group. Mom and dad are gonna go to the bowling alley, or, go
Yeah,
do who knows what. I mean, they're active participants in the worship experience as well. So that's why I was
yeah,
curious.
yeah. That's good. Um, I think it's just communicating with the parents, seeing uh, what's going on, because a lot of times a youth student won't talk to their parents about things that they're dealing with, but they'll talk to a youth pastor, or even a youth leader. I used to have a female youth leader. She got married and moved to California, but for 2 years, I mean, every female in the youth group, they would talk to her just about really things that they're struggling with, like, and they would tell her things that there's no way they would share with their parents. And so I was actually surprised that they were sharing it with anybody, but she was able to build that kind of relationship. And um, I think it's just about teaming up, and like, if the parents and the youth pastor, or the kids pastor, if they share the same vision, which is that these kids grow up and are still passionately pursuing God, that's a win. And so when you're on the same goal, you're running down the same track together. I think it's just teaming up, being communication. I've had parents tell me, like, hey, my boy is dating this girl, and it's a super unhealthy relationship, just like break up and make up type deal. Can you talk to him? And where they might not be able to, where he may, this boy may not listen to his parents if they talk to him. I think maybe they should still try, but maybe he'll hear it from a youth pastor, better. And so I think it's teaming up like that.
I think that's great, and I think that's culture changing. in my mind, what you guys are doing up there in the
And
faith.
Neil, if I could just say, like, for people who are listening who their parents and they have a child that's going to kids ministry or youth ministry, if your child's kids or youth pastor has not reached out to them yet, I would just encourage to, ask the youth pastor or the kids pastor out to, a cup of coffee and just talk about, things, how your child's doing in their kids and youth ministry class. And, youth pastors and kids pastors should, in a perfect world, I think, initiate contact with the parents, probably within the first couple months. But if they drop the ball, which I have before, so I'm not pointing any fingers, I just encourage parents to seek out, the youth pastor, the kids pastor, and talk and begin to develop that team.
I think you're right on with what you're saying. My question still comes back to this idea that kids are leaving. Why do
Yeah.
you think kids are leaving? And I know you haven't maybe had a ton of experience from the sound of it, which is, if we were face to face, I would high five you, not in the face, but in the hand, just to be clear. I would high five you hand to hand and say, great job, good and faithful servant that you've been. But why do you think kids are still wanting to leave? I mean, because again, down here in the Valley, we are seeing it. I mean, kids just seem disinterested and just don't want anything to do. Not only kids, but even adults.
Yeah.
Let's face it, even adults don't want anything to do with God. What do you think the central reason for that is?
Oh man, yeah, this is a great question. Um, I don't feel like, by the time they kind of step out into the real world, uh, they don't have an established relationship. This is not everybody, Neil.
This is a generalized statement. Absolutely.
Yeah,
Totally
I
agree.
would not.
Generalized statement. Yep.
I would not think of Gary as this, but I'm just putting this out. This is not all students, but I would say probably most of
We'll
them.
call the student Tom, right?
Yep.
Sake of arguments, we have a student Tom. Tom grew up in the
Yep.
church, right?
Yep.
Tom loves Jesus in his middle school days, in his high school days. Tom's gone on missions trips. Tom's shared the gospel. Maybe even led worship at time or two. By all intents and purposes, Tom is a rising star in faith. He's reading his Bible, but for whatever reason, Tom gets accepted to Lane Community College. And it's the
Okay.
first time Tom's away from home. And Tom decides, you know what? That whole Jesus thing, I don't know if it's for me anymore.
Yeah.
And what do you think causes Tom to turn at this point? If you were going to speculate on this fictitious person, Tom.
Yeah. So let's say that Tom went up to me and said, I don't know if Jesus is who he says he was. I think my response would be, I'm glad you're nothing against you or your parents, Tom, but I know you're a made up fictional character, but
Right?
but Tom, I kind of feel like your faith may have never been yours to begin with. Like, I think maybe you were just hanging on to your parents' faith, and it's, maybe at some points things were sincere, but I'd ask him, at a lot of points, were you just going through the motions? Were you just like, because you grew up in church, like, these were your people, these were the people that you've always been around? Like, have you ever just figured it out for yourself, your faith? And I would ask him that question. And I'll tell you, like, the students who, in my experience, the students who grew up in the church and just kind of had their parents' faith, they, I don't know if you grew up Neil, but
I
was
did. Yeah.
you
I
did
mean,
was there
I grew up Southern Baptist Catholic, I say. so,
nice.
so we had friends that were Catholic, so we went to Mass from time to time. And then the main church we went to was for First Baptist Church of Carlsbad, which I don't believe exists anymore. It's a different name. Building's still there, different name. And, went through youth ministry, junior high ministry, youth ministry. And then somewhere in the high school years, made some declarations that, maybe I should be a youth pastor.
Mm,
And Columbine High School is always my story, kind of part of my ministry story. That happened my senior year of high school. And the first thought before I found out the number of students that had been killed was, where's their youth pastor
mm,
for Eric Harris and Dylan Klebold? And I immediately thought, that's what I want to do. I want to encourage and equip young people so Columbine never has to happen through the gospel. Because I thought if I could take the gospel to the high school, Columbine doesn't happen. I thought,
yeah.
where's their youth leader? And that's when I really kind of discovered that God was really calling me into that. And so shortly after that, I kind of put myself in a position through the church I was attending, Medford Neighborhood Church. They actually helped in aiding and facilitating me to be able to go through what they call their licensing program through the Christian
Yeah.
Missionary Alliance. What do they call it? Leadership Academy. And so I did that. It's a correspondence class. So I didn't actually ever have to go sit in a classroom per se. I did it all through a packet. They would send me a syllabus. I would read a book, write a journal on the book, and then write a paper. Because for me, youth, I'm still obviously very passionate about, but I want to see, these kids, I'm like, they're leaving. And so our fictitious character, Thomas, or Tom, whatever we want to call him, he comes back to you and he says, I don't know. And you were leading on to, did you ever have your faith to begin with? Was it yours or was it your parents? And then we kind of lost track and I went crazy. So here we are again.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. That's a question I'm kind of figuring out for myself as well with someone like Tom, because just wasn't my experience. I know my faith is my own faith because my parents do not share this faith. My dad, I got an adopted dad, but my biological dad is now a Christian. I got to stand next to his side as he got baptized 2 years ago, and now he's a great man of faith. But so for Tom, I don't know what that journey looks like.
Right.
And maybe I'm getting off topic here a little bit, but yeah, I don't know what that I know that I have my youth leaders all grew up in the church, so maybe I would point Tom toward one of my youth leaders at that point, the one that they trust the most, and just say, hey, this youth leader went through exactly what you went through.
Yeah.
They went through a season where they had to figure out, is this my faith or my parents' faith that I'm just, kind of hanging on to.
And I guess that's the hardest part is whether we have a fictitious person or whether we have a real live person, maybe, because I'm sure you have people on your prayer list as much as I do, that we want to know the saving power of Jesus and know the redeeming power of his forgiveness. And, it's really hard because we can't make somebody believe. We can't make somebody, they have to have that on their own. And I think that's the hardest part of life, is this idea that somehow I can make somebody choose the way I believe or the way I think. And I think that's why we kind of said this a little bit of pre-show. That's why I started this podcast, is because I can't make anyone believe me. I can't make anyone change their thinking. They have to consciously make that choice to put themselves in someone else's shoes, to really think, do I believe what they're saying? And am I really going to do what it's going to take to figure it out? Because truth today, I think, is lost. So.
Yeah, it is. I would agree, definitely. Neil, You are a wise man, dude.
Well, I don't know about that, but Ben, I
I
want
should
to.
be interviewing you. That's
Well,
what.
stop it. Well, another
Let's
time.
walk in Neil's shoes.
No, nobody wants to do that. Nobody wants to do that. But Ben,
What size shoes do you wear,
yeah,
Neil?
they're 11s, 10 and a half 11s. I wear smaller size than Nikes. Why is that? Do you notice that? By the way, on a side note, this is
Yes.
way off track, but
Yes.
it's worth it. Something there, I
I have
think.
noticed that Nike runs smaller than.
Okay. I didn't know if it was just
Than
me and my gigantic fat feet. And
no.
what's weird too, I don't know why we're talking about this, but I love shoes, but I hate feet. Ponder that
Well,
one.
the shoes cover the feet. So
That's true. Maybe that's why.
if
So,
we didn't have shoes, you'd have to see everyone's feet.
That's true. Maybe that's why. So Ben, let's wrap up with. I'm going to give you a final thought. Then we're going to play a game.
Cool.
Because you're a youth guy, it's always fun to play youth games, right? So,
Okay, yeah.
So final thought is this, or final question I have is this: is if you had an opportunity to go to Autzen Stadium, because that's in your neck of the woods, right?
It is, yeah.
Okay, probably not your favorite place to go from the
About
sound of it.
45 minutes away.
Okay, but Autzen seats what 80,000? Are they there? Are they there yet?
It's a lot. Yeah, I've been there. I don't know the exact number.
I don't
Yeah,
either,
it's a lot.
so we'll have to fact check that. But we'll just say we get 80,000 into Autzen somehow, some way, right? Garth Brooks is coming, so maybe they were gonna get like way more than that. But you get 80,000 people in that stadium, and you're center stage, and the 80,000 that are there have this experience coming in. The only way they could get in is they had to fit into these categories, okay?
Okay.
Went to church, left. Want nothing to do with God. And were hurt by a church. What do you tell those 80,000?
Oh, dude. I would tell them that their experience is real. Oh man, of course it's real. I've been right there with. I would say I've been right there with you. I spent years at a church that brought me in twice because they said that there was accusations that I was looking at pornography on their church computers. But I was interning for them, and I worked the knock shift. And so I was just on my days off. I was awake during 2 a.m. doing my work at the church. And, like that sucked, man, being brought in like that. And there were times when I was brought in because I was asked to put away chairs, and they said that I gave them a rude look and walked off. And I'm like, I have no recollection. Like that's not even in my character, And so church hurt is real. But I would say that the beauty of the church is that it's run by people, which means it can get ugly. But when it's rolling, like when it's rolling on all four cylinders, man, we have seen the healing, the compassion, the giving, people opening up their homes to orphans and even though they're not really, like, the budget may be tight, they still open up their wallets and people stretch themselves. When the church is rolling, I would say it's the most beautiful thing that God created is people who come together to follow God and to serve His purpose. That is beautiful. So I would say, church hurt, I'm sorry that you went through that. I would say that I would search for a healthy church, for a church that you feel like you can get involved with and stand with and serve with. But I would say that God did not hurt you. I know sometimes when I'm like, I feel hurt, I kind of like say, God, what's up with that? That sucked. But at the end of the day, it's just realizing it's not God that hurt you. It was God's people, But yeah, that would kind of be my I guess that's what I would be, just agreeing with them and then challenging them to find a healthy church.
I think that's beautiful what you said, because again, I think so many people are hurting in this world. So many people are desperately seeking that fulfillment that they're not going to find anywhere else. They're not going to find it in their job. They're not going to find it in money. I've known so many people who have tried and have failed at finding it in money. They're not going to find it in, pornography or drugs or anything else like that. They're not going to find it in anything else. And people say, well, it's so cliche to say, oh, find it in Jesus. But truly, truly seeking Jesus, you do find ultimate fulfillment. I think you're absolutely right on that. So.
Yeah.
Agree 100%, obviously. So you're not here, but we play this game called Senseless. So here it is, Senseless.
Oh, yeah.
I'm rolling for you. So hopefully you get a good number. You got a number 4, which is going to be really fun because I have all the questions on my phone. So we didn't really think this through, did we? But this is the joy of the iPhone. Little plug for Apple here. As I get this loaded up, you can do multiple things at one time, like be on a phone call and look at your Notes app while you're talking through a digital recorder and a microphone sitting outside of this beautiful courtyard here in downtown Medford. So all that aside to say this, Ben, what is the one thing you love to hear?
I think the one thing I love to hear most would be probably my spouse saying, "Hey, baby, I'm going to give you that back rub that I've been promised you since the day we got married." I'd be like, "Oh yeah."
What is your bride's name? Are we allowed to say it?
Sure. Yeah.
Okay. Fair enough.
Yeah. Her name's Jen.
Jen. Okay. Well,
Yeah.
Jen sounds amazing. I think if she puts up with all of your shenanigans, she's probably worth sainthood, perhaps. So, Jen, that's for you. That Ben did not ask me, nor did we talk about that ahead of time. But But Ben, I want to thank you, man, for making this work. We don't even know each other, and that's the best part. But we have one thing in common that bonds us together, and that makes us family. And of course, that is Jesus ultimately.
Your podcast. Oh yeah.
Oh right,
yep.
It's
Jesus. Jesus. Yes.
The Sunday school answer was Jesus, but I like your answer better. The podcast is what brings everyone together. So, so Ben, thank you for being a part of Other People's Shoes. I just want to remind everyone, as we walk in other people's shoes, we really do get a different perspective on life. Stay tuned for future episodes.